You have a teenage daughter who is not doing well in school. Your husband, he's not praying. You are MSA president, and one of your board members is constantly getting things done really late. And your masjid president, he puts people down in meetings. How do you help someone change their behavior, their action, the way they do things? Through encouraging the positives that they already have. How do you help someone change that you care about? Through encouraging their positives. When the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ sent Mu'adh ibn Jabal to Yemen as a teacher, as an ambassador, to go and teach and preach the message of Islam, he was walking with Mu'adh ibn Jabal, one of his companions, and he's walking from the masjid, from the mosque, to the outskirts of Medina. And Mu'adh ibn Jabal has with him his camel, and the Prophet ﷺ is walking with him. Imagine you're saying goodbye to your friend in the airport, or your father who's going for Hajj, and you're sort of, he's going along, they're having a conversation, and as they get to the outskirts of Medina Munawwara, Prophet ﷺ turns around to Mu'adh ibn Jabal and says, "Oh Mu'adh, asa an la talqani ba'da ama hadha," that perhaps this is the last time we will meet. This is the last time that we will get to see each other. And Mu'adh, when he hears this, he says, "That's it? Is this it?" Prophet tells him, you will come back, you will see my masjid, you will see my grave, but I will not be here. This is the last time that we meet." And Mu'adh began to cry, and he said, "Ya Rasulullah, this is it?" And the Prophet ﷺ started to cry. This was a very emotional meeting. This is going to be the last time that the Prophet ﷺ sees Mu'adh as he's going on his mission. And by the time he comes back, the Prophet ﷺ has the knowledge of the future that he's not going to be there. He will have passed away by then. And of course, when Mu'adh did come back, Prophet ﷺ already passed away, and he was met his grave in the masjid. And so, in this very emotional last final meeting, Prophet ﷺ gave Mu'adh a beautiful advice. Can you imagine that if you're at the last meeting, this is the final time you will meet your loved one, your husband, your wife, your mother, your father, your friend. This is the last time you will see them. This is it. For whatever reason, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them? Here Prophet ﷺ, the Nabi of Allah, is giving an advice to one of his companions that he loves, and giving him the final advice. What is the final advice he gives him? As is the famous advice that, "O Mu'adh, encourage people, don't discourage them. Tell them, glad tidings, don't make them turn away. Make things easy for people, don't make them hard." Prophet ﷺ, on the last advice he gave to his trained teacher, who's going to go and teach the people Islam, was about encourage people. So if you want to help someone change, encourage them. If you want to help someone change, it's not about pointing out what they should be doing wrong, what they're doing is wrong, but just encourage things that they're already doing. Prophet ﷺ will go to a tribe. He saw someone would go to a tribe. One time he went to a tribe by the name of Banu Abdullah, and he said, "Oh Banu Abdullah, you have such a beautiful name. Turn to Allah. Look at your name, it's so beautiful. God didn't name your tribe, Banu Abdullah and other of these, idols. He named you Banu Abdullah. What a beautiful name. Good start." He pointed out the positive. Imagine that your child, he goes to a family gathering. A lot of time, you have a teenager doesn't want to go to family gatherings, right? And you push and he goes with you. In the car, his face turned this way, he's on his phone, and you turn around to him and you say, "No, stop doing that. Make a good face. We're going to go to our cousin's house. Why are you still looking like that? You don't spend time with the family." Instead, turn around to him and say, "You know what? It's amazing. I'm so happy that you're coming with us." Even though you have to get him out of the house, but in the car when you're about to get off, you say, "You know what? We're so happy, we love you, and so happy to see you, that you're here." When someone calls you on the phone, and they've been calling 1 month, you can pick up the call and go, "Where you been?" It's the first thing you say, and then you start giving a whole long lecture as to why they called you late. People then they pick up the phone. They go, "You know what? This is why I don't call you." Every time I call, it's a negative feeling. Instead, when you call, say, "I'm so happy that you called. I've been missing your call." And then you could talk about, where you been. But that's the second part. First part, appreciate that little positive. Encourage that. So next time, they're going to feel more ready to give you a call, because it's so beautiful and positive every time they call you. So how do you encourage strength? How do you help people change? The people that you love in your life, help them change, whether a habit, whether it's something, the way they do things. How do you help them change? But through just pointing out their positive. Very interesting way of changing people. Just point out their positives. They have 90% evil, 10% good. Just keep on focusing on that 10% good. I tell parents in sometime in therapy, their kids are doing 90% wrong. Breaking this, not eating on time, vomiting here, and throwing this. I tell them, every time they do something good, just talk about that. The other stuff, just ignore. When I train teachers in schools, in public schools, I tell them, you have 30 kids in your class, and the kids are going haywire, and there's one kid who's sitting down and just quiet. You could go and scream at the kid on the back and go, "Hey, Michael, stop talking." You could do that, or you could focus on one kid in the front and go, "You know what? I'm so happy. You're so quiet. You're paying attention." The whole class will stop as to why you're praising this person right here. Instead of focusing on the person who wants your attention by doing bad, loud and breaking things, you focus on the person that's doing good. You focus on the positive. That 90% evil becomes 100% in the classroom, and also individually as a person has 90% evil, 90% bad, evil, quote unquote. The 10% good, just focus on 10% good. Keep on encouraging 10% good, and that person will keep on magnifying that 10%, and that for 10% will become 100. So how do you actually do this? How do you actually build on strengths? Because study shows that there was a famous study done at the Drexel University. They studied about MLB teams, the baseball teams, for over 100 years profile. Close to 75 teams they studied, and they found that the teams which had leadership that were very encouraging, very positive, they did better. They brought in more home runs. They had better and raving fans. And another study by the Center for Advanced Studies in Ann Arbor, they studied companies and corporates, and they found the companies that have more positivity in their emails, in their conversations, in their leadership meetings, those companies do much better. They found this cool ratio, 1-5. So amount of negative that's been talked about, even the employees, they're pointing out negative. Even a lot of time managers, they point out negative. So only time that you get an email from a manager is when you do something wrong. They never tell you about the positive that you're doing. Imagine the manager only focuses on the positive that you're doing. What will happen is it will just focus on that positive. Okay? So here are a few steps in doing this. Number one, build on variations. When someone comes to me in my life coaching, for example, and says, "You know what? I have a hard time being in social settings." I tell them, so it seems like you have a hard time at certain times, and sometimes you don't. Because what they told me is that not all settings. I'm sure there are some settings that they don't have difficulty in. They focus in on that, because they come and tell me, I have difficulty in social settings. So I'll ask them instead, so when do you don't have difficulty? Let's talk about that. You build on the variation. Number two, you actually point out the positives. So, for example, couples come to me and sometime and instead of talking about what are some arguments they have, because sometimes couples come and they tell you all the list of arguments that they had last week. Last time they had therapy, and this week they're coming in for couples therapy, and they tell you, okay, we're arguing on Wednesday. I say, you know what? How about Monday, the day you didn't have argument? Tell me about that. I'm more interested in that. Let's not talk about the times you had argument. Let's focus in on the positive, the time that actually worked. Let's learn what you did there. Number three is to focus on the small steps. Focusing on the small things that they have done, and point those out. Even the small steps that they taken towards change. So you find out this person, I'm dealing with someone who's smoking, or your husband who's not praying, and you find out he actually took a step. Maybe he came home early planning to go to the masjid, and then he just we turned on his Netflix, and then he started watching and didn't go. But you could point, instead of saying, you didn't go to Salah again, how you come home every day, what are you teaching to your kids, you're being a bad role model for our children. Instead of doing that, you say, I'm happy that you came early planning to go to the masjid. That's beautiful. Just leave it at that. For today, just leave it at that. So you focus on the small stuff they take in. And your son, you realize, just not doing well in school, but he agrees with your plan to go to a tutor. So you say, I'm happy that you went to a tutor. Maybe it's still not helping the grades, but took that little small step, and you point that out. Point the small step they have taken towards change. So point that out. Point the small steps they've taken towards change. And so you want to be able to focus on people's positive. So your president of your community center of your masjid, who's always annoying, who's always putting people down in the meetings, go to him first and tell him, I love the way you manage the meeting. This and this part, I like it. Just point out those things. He most likely he already knows that he puts people down, and he knows he gets negative feedback from that. So you go to him and just point out the positives he's doing. I really like this and that and that, not the ones the other part. And you point out the positive, he will focus in on that, because people like being encouraged, and they want to see your person that you love, your mother or your son or your wife is not doing X, Y, and Z, but they're doing this one thing. Just focus in on that, and just point that out, verbalize it, and tell them, I really appreciate this. This is really good. When you do that, you will see people will just flock towards doing more of that, because people love being encouraged. So if you really want to make people change, one of the best ways is to encourage their strengths. Look at the positives that they're already doing and just bring that up. Bring that out more. Celebrate it. Put it out in the front and say, this is great. I know that's not the challenge, but this is amazing you're doing. And you will see they're going to let go of that garbage and just focus in on that. Help people change by encouraging their strength.